Guys, this tutorial is in continuation with the earlier one, where we learned in detail about the fundamentals of form validation concept. While learning all these basic concepts, I also showed you the use of size and valid form validation annotations with the help of this ultra simple demo application, which I created step by step along with you in all the previous tutorials. Now let's proceed further. In the previous tutorial, I included valid annotation with the model attribute annotation here in this request handler method argument. I also included size annotation with these arguments on top of student hobby field. After making all these changes in the previous tutorial, now if I go to the browser and provide here a value for student hobby field, which would have a length of 1 character, and submit the form, the application would return back the same admission form with this form validation error message. It's saying size must be between 2 and 30. So the idea is very clear. When user would violate size constraint, then the application would return back the same admission form with this default error message. Size must be between 2 and 30. Now the point which I want to make in this demo is this error message is not so user friendly. What if you want to display here some message which is more user friendly to the user, something like please enter a value for student hobby field between 2 and 30 characters, or some other error message of your choice. So question is how you would do it, and the answer is simply by including one more argument for size annotation like this. So here, after I placed message equals this custom error message, now if I go to the browser and resubmit the form, let's see what happens. Cool, this time Spring MVC has displayed this error message. Please enter a value for student hobby field between 2 and 30 characters. So the idea is very clear. If we do not provide an argument like this for size annotation, then Spring MVC would use the default error message for size constraint violation, and that is size must be between min and max values, which we are given over here. And if you provide here an argument like this, then Spring MVC would use this message instead of the default error message for size constraint violation. Guys, there's one more important point I would want to make over here. If you note here in this custom error message, I'm using the values of min and max as hard-coded strings 2 and 30. Now Spring MVC has given a flexibility to the developers to access min and max values, which I've given over here dynamically in this custom error message by replacing 2 and 30 with these strings, that is min and max placed under curly braces. So now after this change, if I go to the browser and resubmit the form, let's see what happens. Cool. This time again it displayed our own custom error message for size constraint violation, but this time Spring MVC replaced values of min and max with these values which we are given over here dynamically before displaying this whole custom error message to the user. So far so good. With all these modifications, we are able to instruct Spring MVC not to use the default error message and use this custom error message in case of size constraint violation. Now the point which I want to make over here is usually developers have a habit of keeping all such messages in a separate properties file in their Spring MVC project. Let's say in this demo I have a requirement like this. What I want is I don't want to keep the custom error message here as the argument for size annotation, and instead of that what I want is I want to keep the custom error message in a separate properties file in this Spring MVC project, and would want Spring MVC to use that custom error message in case of size constraint violation. So how would I do it? Spring MVC says, hey developers, you can do it very easily with the help of a concept which I provide to you known as Spring MessageSource. Guys, in order to make this change, I will need to include a properties file in this project, and also I will need to make a very small change in this Spring dispatcher-servlet.xml file. I'll do one thing. I'll quickly make all required changes for this, and later I will explain every single thing to you in detail. Cool. So here I'm done with making all required changes for this requirement. I've included this code snippet in Spring dispatcher-servlet.xml file and have included student messages.properties file in this Spring MVC demo project. Now let's understand in detail what exactly I've done here with all these modifications. Here I've included a new bean which is having ID as message source and class as reloadable resource bundle message source. With this code snippet, I'm simply instructing Spring MVC framework. Here Spring MVC framework. In this demo application, I've included a properties file with the name student messages, which is placed under web-inf directory in this demo application. At runtime, when any user of this demo application violates the size constraint which we have placed on top of student hobby property, by providing some non-desired value in the student hobby form element, some value which would not pass our size constraint which we have placed on top of student hobby property in the student class, and submit the form. At that moment, while processing the request, you check student messages.properties file, and there you search for a key size.student1.studentHobby, and if you find it, you simply use the corresponding message to display to the user in the response web page as the custom error message for size constraint violation. And if you do not find such a key, then you use your own default error message for size constraint violation, and that is size must be between min and max values. As for this application to consider all the changes which we just made, we got to restart the server. So let's restart the server, and subsequently I will explain more about all the changes which we just made in this demo application. So let's stop the server and restart it. Cool. So the application is up and running. So after all these modifications, now if I provide here a value for student hobby field which would have a length of 1 character and submit the form, let's see what happens. Cool, the application sent back the same admission form back with this error message, but this time Spring MVC used the custom error message for size constraint violation which we placed in this properties file. Guys, non-important thing to learn over here. How I knew for size constraint violation, Spring MVC framework is going to search for this key and not any other key in this properties file. And the answer is, for any form validation constraint violation, Spring MVC framework searches for a key which would match with this key pattern in this properties file. And that is validation annotation name dot object reference name dot field name. If it finds any such key in this properties file, then it would simply use the corresponding message to it as a custom error message for that constraint violation. But if it doesn't find such a key, then it would search for a key which would match with this key pattern. This time also, if it doesn't find any matching key, it would again search for a key which would match with this key pattern. This time also, if it doesn't find, it's going to search for a key which would match with this key pattern. But this time, if it doesn't find any matching key in this properties file, then it would simply use the default error message for that constraint violation which framework provides. Guys, in the next tutorial, we're going to explore more on the concept of message source which is provided by Spring, which we just saw in a brief manner in this demo. Guys, a big thank you for liking all of my tutorials on Spring MVC series. If you have any feedback or queries, please put them below the video or simply write to me on this email ID for all of your queries. Please hit the like button if you really like the video, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel Gone to Series, and I'm going to catch you in my next tutorial.